All right, so welcome to RN Eades Nursing Made Easy. Today's episode is a special one, and it's really for our fundamental nursing students. Now, I'm going to be very honest with you, and I told you guys from the very beginning, I'm going to do my very best sometimes to just keep real. And I know that I go through these moments where I'm being very like different tones, but I woke up and I thought to myself, what was I missing when I was a nursing student? Why wasn't I successful in the fourth semester? And I want to tell you that part of that was because of some things that we talked about throughout my podcast of like not being as organized as I possibly can, not having a really good balance between my personal life and my school life. And I really thought that I could have a life and not study as hard as I needed to. But then I really began to look back on what I had to do to make sure that I passed when I repeated my class. And I realized one of the things that I don't hear much about, but I did study in between that year break that I had, was about homeostasis, pathophysiology. And so I'm going to encourage you that before reading anything, and I know you're like, what? Read, okay, can't watch a video, and maybe I'll put one out one day. But in the meantime, if you can go to your textbook, look at the topic that they're wanting you to go over, read the pathophysiology section if there is one, because the pathophysiology relates to that anatomy and physiology. And that's why I did a post on that. But even with the anatomy and physiology, the biggest thing, again, that I don't hear about is homeostasis. So we're going to talk about homeostasis and a compensatory mechanism of the body. And I want you to think of it like a seesaw. And so we're going to explore how it all connects. So we're just going to get started. So, the compensatory mechanism refers to the body's ability to make internal adjustments in response to changes or imbalances in order to help maintain a stable internal environment or homeostasis. It is really like the body's immediate response team, and it comes to rescue whenever there's a shift away from its normal functions. So, how does it work? So, in detail, there is a detection of imbalance. There are specialized sensors throughout the body that work to detect if there's a deviation from the normal range. For instance, if the blood pressure drops, there are receptors, baroreceptors in the arteries that sense these changes and begin to shift to make an adjustment. There is an immediate response. So there are various systems within the body that respond and they try to correct the imbalance. In the case of, we talked about before, the low blood pressure, the heart may beat faster and the blood vessels may constrict in order to help raise the blood pressure back to a normal level. Long-term adjustments, if it's really necessary, if the initial responses is not enough, the body might make more sustained changes, such as the kidneys retaining more water to increase blood volume. One of the things I think about is, and I want you to know that the compensatory mechanism is always working. So for right now, my body, I probably all day, now that I think about it, have not had anything to drink. My mouth all of a sudden is becoming dry. I look and I can see that I have signs that say that I might be slightly dehydrated. My brain is telling me right now, which I'm going to do, is to take a sip of water. Our body kind of sends signals out using our certain systems to kind of help us get what we need. So if once it notices there's an imbalance, there it kind of moves the body to do what it needs with an immediate response. But if we ignore that response, then the body goes, okay, we need to do something long term. So it works constantly to tell us what we need to do, makes us through our brain give it what it needs. However, there is a limitation to this compensatory mechanism. So while the compensatory mechanisms are highly effective in many cases, they do have their limits. So the length of time that they can operate without the underlying issue being resolved varies depending on the specific mechanism and the severity of that imbalance. However, with short-term compensation, some compensations are meant for immediate short-term corrections and may only last for minutes, maybe a couple of hours. If the underlying cause isn't resolved quickly, then these mechanisms can become overwhelmed. Long term, other compensatory mechanisms last longer. Sometimes it can go on for days or weeks. However, again, if the underlying problem persists, the body's resources may become depleted, or the compensatory mechanisms themselves might lead to other problems. And that is where we come into play. So that's why we have nurses, that's why we have doctors, that's why we have aides. The body begins to recognize and starts to show symptoms. Listen, we tried to compensate, we tried to bring balance, we tried to get you to do what we needed to do, but you've ignored the signs and symptoms too long. And now we got to give you obvious symptoms that you need to get help right away. And that's when we go, oh, not feeling well, we need to get to the doctors. Some examples may include an acid-base imbalance, and as you go through the fundamentals, you'll start getting to that fluid electrolyte. And I promise you, I'll do a podcast about that in the future. But for now, keeping these steps in order. Again, example, acid-base imbalance. There's a respiratory compensation for a metabolic acidosis that can begin within minutes, but is a temporary measure. Without correction of the underlying cause, that imbalance can lead to serious complications. So um, there's a lot more, because there's not just respiratory issues, that can also be metabolic issues when it comes to acid-base imbalance. But the point being is that is one of the imbalances that can happen, and it affects those vital signs. Another one can be heart failure. In chronic heart failure, the heart tries to compensate by enlarging and pumping more forcefully. However, over time, this compensation can lead to further damage and worsening of the heart functions. So when we think about wrapping all of this up with the compensatory mechanism, it's vital to our body's ability to be able to adapt to those changes and maintain stability. They can work effectively for a while, but if the underlying demands are met, the mechanism can become overwhelmed or lead to additional problems. The length of time that they can function without resolution of the issues is variable and specific to each situation or each patient, or depending on the system that it's involved. So medical interventions is going to be needed to address the root cause of whatever that imbalance is and support the body's effort to maintain homeostasis. So now that we've gotten a little bit of discussion into that compensatory mechanism, I want you to think and imagine a seesaw in a playground. Homeostasis is that process of keeping the seesaw perfectly balanced, no matter who gets on or off. Now, the compensatory mechanisms are the adjustments made to keep it balanced. If a heavier child sits on one side, you add weight to the other side to balance it out. Now, how does this correlate with vital signs and symptoms? Now, remember I said with that compensatory mechanism, it only lasts for so long, and then it sends out signals telling you something's wrong. So in the body, this balance is maintained by five major systems: the brain, the heart, the lungs, the kidneys, and the liver. If something's out of balance, like vital signs, it can cause symptoms. An example is like high blood pressure might be a sign that the seesaw of water and salt in your body is off. The kidneys then act to restore balance by filtering out excess salt. The role that we play, or that you will play as a student nurse, your job is to recognize those imbalances and understand how the body tries to fix them. It's like being a playground monitor, watching the seesaw and knowing what to do if it starts to tip. So, an example, if a patient's temperature is high, the body seesaw is tipped. You understand that it's a compensatory mechanism. What are you thinking about? Well, the brain. The hypothalamus is working to cool the body down. You might administer medication or provide cooling measures as directed by either doctor's orders or whoever the lead nurse is, especially as a student, whoever your clinical instructor is. The biggest thing is recognizing what is happening in the body. It's a temps. Temperature is high, the hypothalamus kicks in to try to cool the body down. It can do two things. If we're quick on it, and we see it right away, we might cool ourselves off. We might go into the air conditioning. We might take off clothing. That's our body telling us ways that it can assist us. We might have to give medication or provide cooling mechanisms like a cooling blanket. So you start to learn those things when you are reading information, visualize what's happening within that body. And we're going to eventually go through a tour of all those different body systems as it relates to homeostasis. I'm trying to get these in fast enough. It's getting ready to start. So I want to make sure that you're getting the information fast enough so that as you get towards your first exam, as you're going through the material in the class, you can connect to it. So, breakdown by organ systems, we're just going to give a little bit of example. We're going to talk about the brain. The brain is the control center, and it's adjusting the seesaw as it sees fit. Imbalanced examples include confusion, which may indicate that there's an imbalance in electrolytes like sodium. With the heart's job is to pump blood to balance the oxygen and nutrients. If there's an imbalance, you might see a rapid heart rate to let you know that it's compensating for low blood oxygen levels. The brain tells the heart, hey, or sends signals to get the heart rate to go up. And by going up, the body gets oxygen circulating a lot faster. I'm going to go on to the lungs. The lungs maintain the balance of oxygen and CO2. If there's an imbalance, the heart rate, the respirations may go up, indicating that there's an acid base imbalance. But also, again, because these things work together, when one is the brain sends a signal to the heart compensates by increasing the heart rate. But if that begins to fail and the lungs and if the body can't get the oxygen and the CO2 to stay in balance, then it becomes imbalanced. Your heart, your lungs pick up in that rapid breathing to try to blow off that CO2. And that system works as long as it can, and sometimes in the kidneys, which is the fourth system, has to kick in. It filters blood to balance out water and salt. If there's an imbalance, there begins to be swelling in the legs, might indicate a fluid imbalance. And sometimes your body again works as this perfect system to try to keep that balance. The liver processes nutrients and toxins as well. If there's an imbalance, jaundice may show that the liver is struggling to process bilirubin. So there you have it. The body works in a very uh, unique way, and in order to kind of keep that balance that we need. The biggest thing for us is understanding homeostasis, understanding that it's like mastering the art of the seesaw. Recognize the imbalances, know the compensatory mechanism, and learn how to assist in restoring that balance. I want to thank you for tuning in to RNE's Nursing Made Easy. I want you to keep observing learning and embracing the fascinating world of nursing. Don't forget to subscribe, share this podcast with your fellow nursing students, and until next time, keep your seesaw balance and your passion for nursing alive. Until next time.